Welcome everyone to Learn to Code React single page application. Today we are going to break that mold. Today we are going to turn our single page application into a multi-page application. So today's agenda is going to be to look at routing and how we manage the layout of our project because we have some static components. We have some components that we want to keep on all the pages that we navigate to keep the same look and feel. So that'll be like the nav bar, the background, the footer, those types of elements. How do we carry those over from the first page to the second, third to basically give the look and feel that we are in the same exact framework of our application? So today I'm going to go over to our main page and we're going to really focus on services and about. And today we don't really have a services. We don't have an about. We just have these sort of dead links. We haven't done anything with these two links. But today is going to be a bit of an exploration into routing, but also today is going to be a bit of a homework assignment. So when you see services and when you see about, you can fill these out with your own information because we've done some CSS, we've done some HTML, and we've done some React already. I give you this challenge to be able to fill out these two pages on your own. But first, in order to fill out the two pages, we have to connect them to our application. So let's get started. I'm going to go ahead and share out my Visual Studio Code. And if you're joining us for the first time, I do want to make note that today we are going to be using Node.js. This is completely free. You do need to download this and install this if you want to do anything with React. And the next thing we are going to be using is Visual Studio Code as our interactive development environment. So these two tools we're going to use extensively today. All right, so I'm going to share out my Visual Studio Code and we will get started. So here we have Visual Studio Code. I have already created a folder called Week 9. And in our Week 9, it is completely empty here. We don't have any information in here. We have no folders. It's a completely blank folder. And I have a terminal window. If you're not familiar with the terminal window, you can go back and look at week 6, 7, and 8. And in there, we extensively spend time in this little terminal window because that's where we're going to drive a lot of our coding and productivity from. So in here, the first thing we're going to do is create our npx create React app. So I'm going to type in npx. And if you feel like watching, that's cool. If you're pretty confident in creating a React app by now, follow along and type along. But if not, that's totally cool. So create React app. And in here, I'm just going to call it first app. You can call it my app, first app, whatever you want to. Just a simple name for a project that we are going to use as a reference point for our examples today. So while this is going, I am going to kind of talk about what routing is and why we need it. So out of the box, React does a pretty good job of giving us a lot of tools to be able to make something like this. And with something like this, it's responsive, it's very easy to navigate. It's a very, very simple web page, but we can expand this and make it a lot more complex. We can even have a full functioning contact us page. So that's kind of like the power of React is very fast, very simple, very powerful. Now, when we add routing, we're going to take it from a single page application to a multi-page application, and all within the framework of React. We don't need any backend, we don't need any database, we don't need any middleware, we don't need anything. We just can use out of the box React. All right, so this thing should be almost done installing, and here we have our node modules and our package JSON. And once that gets all installed, we'll be able to jump in and start creating. And there we go. So we have our source, we have our files, and I'm just going to start this app up real quick, and then we can see what it looks like out of the box. And then we'll start modifying and copying all this code into our React project. So let's go into cd first app, npm start, and we'll see what React looks like out of the box with no modification whatsoever. Let's take a look at what we get. All right, and out of the box, we get this little React symbol, and then we get some text here, and we get a link here. So I'm going to go ahead and blow all this away, get rid of all this, and we're going to replace it with all of this. How am I going to do that? Well, I'm going to copy. I'm not going to type out everything. That's a bit too tedious. I did that once already. I can copy all this information. So I'm going to go into developer tools. And again, if I'm moving too fast, let me know. We did cover a lot of this in the past, and so it's okay if you have questions, but I will move a bit faster because we want to jump into the routing section, and this will be mostly review. So we're going to go to copy element. We're going to go into index.js, and we see, oh, we've got this HTML in here. I've seen HTML before. I can blow this away. So let's get rid of all of this and just pop in that code we just copied. All right, so I've got this HTML code in here. Where did this all come from? Well, it came from right here in the View Developer Tools, inside the elements and inside body. All right, sweet. Now, if I go ahead and look at my app, I'm probably going to have some issues. All right, so let's clear these up. I've covered this in the past, but I'm going to go through and clean these up real quick. And let's do that. I'm going to go to the red parts here. I'm going to cover this pretty quick. So here, the basic thing is it's missing an end closing tag, and it's in a bunch of different places because we use that image quite often. And then down below, there's a few places here we have to put in that closing tag. So pop in that closing tag. And also here, we're going to change this up and add in a couple different elements. So name equals to name and HTML label for name. I'm going to change the word for. There's a couple keyword changes that we do have to make updates to. And it'll be that for to HTML for, and this will be for email. And I'm going to pop in a name of email here as well. And HTML for, I'm going to change this one to message. All right, there is one more change that we do have to make, and this is kind of a weird one, but see this word class here? So class is a very protected word. It's a protected word in most all programming languages, and we can't reuse that word. Now, we can get away with it here in React, but React will complain. And so what they've done is actually changed class to class name. So if we hold down Command D, we can select all of the classes together and change them all at once. And I can just do class name right there, save, and we're good to go. So now if we look at our page, hey, we've got data, we've got images, we've got all this stuff going on, but we don't have any styling to it. So let's grab the styling. Let's steal the styling. I always like to kind of steal. It's a fun way to learn coding. It's like, oh, I don't have to recreate anything. I can just take what's available. So if I go to app CSS, why is there nothing in here? Ah, there we go. And I paste in my styling. Now let's take a look at our app. Oh, wow, that looks really cool. We have an actual app. It's actually functioning. It looks identical to the original. So how do I know this is mine? Because it's running on localhost. That's my local computer. That's on port 3000. How do I know that's my local computer? Because in here, I'm told that we ran the project on port 3000. Let me go and clear this error so we can see that we're running on port 3000. But I just want to make sure that is known. So here it says, hey, localhost 3000. Sweet. That's us. That's right here. We're flying. We're doing great. So now what I'm going to do is I want to break this up. And this is going to get a little complicated, a little confusing. I'm going to decrease the size of the text because the text isn't really important. What is important is the pattern. And so in here, we have a source folder, and everything lives under the source folder. So I'm going to break this up into components. And we're going to really focus on these three links because this is our nav bar. But then I'm going to break out these components into their own folders. So what I'm going to do is inside of source, I'm going to create three directories. Home. And oh, sorry, I'm going to create a folder called components first. Components. And inside of components, I'm going to have home. And then inside of components, I'm going to have about. And inside of components, I'm going to have services. Okay, so why am I doing home, about, and services? Because I want to have home, about, and services, or home, services, and about up here. I want to make sure that I have a directory for all three of those, because what's going to happen is inside of home, I'm going to put all of the hero, the section 1, section 2, section 3, and the contact inside of home. So let's go ahead and break this out. And inside of home, I am going to pop in all of these three items. And why am I doing that? Well, why I'm doing it is because I need to show my homepage some way, somehow, but I also don't want to include the nav bar. So what we've done so far, actually, I'll just go ahead and do it. And that way you can see kind of the pattern that'll emerge. So here we've got the hero, and then we'll have section 1. And then we'll have home and section 2. And then we'll have section 3. And then we'll have a contact form. Okay, so inside of here, we're going to have a file. We'll call it hero.js. And inside of hero.js, we're going to do an export const hero. And return. And inside of here, we're going to stick in our hero section. So let's grab our hero information and stick it into hero.js. Cool. And then inside of our app.js, we can import home. So here, if I save this as is, you'll see the hero section just went away. And so here I'm going to actually import home. Oh, sorry. One thing I haven't done is put in a home.js. I'm missing something. I'm flying by way too fast. So we have this home, and I'm going to connect this into a home.js. So home.js. Why am I doing that? Because I want to have a consolidation. Export const home. This is going to get really tedious, but it'll really help when we actually take a look at putting it all together. So here's our hero. And how do we bring our hero section back? We've got home.js, we've got hero here. So we've got our hero HTML, the raw HTML is here. And then we've got this home.js component here that references hero. So we're going to go into app.js and we're going to reference in home here. Home. We're going to bring that in, and there we go. Now our hero section comes back. We have section 1, so we're going to do the same exact thing. So section 1, we're going to create a file called section1.js. And inside section 1, we're going to do an export const section1 turn. And inside of here, we're going to pop in our section 1 information. So section 1 comes all the way down here. Let's grab it, save it. Section 1 disappears because I've saved that. And I'll come into section 1, paste that in. Inside of home.js, now I can add in section 1. Awesome. So now we have section 1, and section 1 automatically appears because we've popped it into the home section. So we'll do it again for section 2 and section 3. So section 2.js and section 3.js. And inside of app.js, let's grab section 2 and save that. And section 2 then disappears. It's gone. So let's go into section 2 and add it back in. Export const section 2. Return. And inside of here, I need some curly brackets. That would help. There we go. Save that. And inside of home, add in section 2. And then section 3, finally, export const section 3. So hopefully this looks familiar from the previous times we've done this. The only 2 components that I haven't brought in yet are the navbar and the footer. And we'll take a look at what happens with those in a moment. But let me grab out the section 3. All right, section 3. Pop this in, section 3. And there we have our section 3. And then we have 2 section 3s because we haven't saved app.js yet. So let's save this. And then we have our section 3, just one of them. And then inside of contact us, we'll take that contact and pop it into the contact form. So contact form dot JS, and inside of app.js, we'll go into contact form, export const. We are going to go to app.js, or sorry, inside of home, and pop in the contact form. All right, so that should be enough to have our full functioning app laid out already. Cool. If we take a look at our developer tools, we hopefully can see this inside of our sources. So we've got source components, and here are all of our components. We have app.jss, components home, contact form hero, section 1, 2, and 3, and home.js. So we can see this is how the page is now rendering. The actual elements are going to look really, really similar, where you've got this div, and then you've got this body, and you've got all of this stuff happening here. So really what we've done is, instead of going from a single body over here, we have a body with a bunch of elements in a hierarchical fashion here. We've taken the same idea, except we've broken it up a little bit. Now we've got this nav bar up here to deal with. We've got this div with all these items in here, which is cool. And we got this footer to deal with. We haven't touched the services and about yet, which we'll get to. But I just wanted to show that inside of here, the components are lining up according to what we've already laid out. So we've got parity between what we're typing in the React section and what happens in the browser. So far, that was a lot of work just to have this one single home section right here. Okay, cool. All right, now we're going to start bringing in the routing section. And first and foremost, I'm going to create 2 pages in the about and the services so that we can see what happens. So about.js, and inside here, export const about equals return. And inside here, I'm going to put in some really, really basic text. It's going to be more of a directive. So inside here, I'm going to put in just a simple H3 tag. I'm going to say, welcome to the about page. And I'm going to put in a paragraph tag. This is your homework to put in your resume here. All right, so this is your challenge, your homework. Pop in your resume, figure out how to put CSS into this page and make your resume pop. There's a bunch of resume templates. How do you put your resume into a presentable way that matches the theme and the style of your choosing? So then we're going to go to services, and we're going to go to services.js. Cool. So inside services.js, we're going to change the about to services. So welcome to the services page. This is your homework to put in your portfolio and how much you want to charge others for your work. Cool. All right, so here you can put in your portfolio, you can put in different projects you've worked on, and then you can put in a price or a cost to, hey, this is how much it would cost for me to build this for you. If you'd like to use my services, use the contact form below to contact me. And so I'll leave that up to you to figure out how you want to arrange that. But for now, I just want to show how to link these pages together. Okay, so far we've got this nav bar, we've got our home section, and we've got our footer. Now we've got these links, and I'm going to change these links up a little bit, and we're going to see something kind of weird. So far, it's a dead link. We've never really talked about links up until this point. So this is the first time we're really talking about links. If you want a dead link, a link that doesn't go anywhere, a link that is useless, put a pound in front of it and just whatever the text is. This is an indicator to say that this link is dead, it doesn't go anywhere, it stays local. So watch the URL when I click on the link. Services, I get this pound services, I get this pound about. Doesn't really do anything for me, doesn't really change anything. But now when I get rid of that and I start putting in an actual location or a destination, watch what happens. So I'm going to replace that pound with a forward slash, and replace that with a forward slash. So I'm going to save this. All I've done is taken away the hash symbol and replaced it with a forward slash. Now I come back here and I click on about. Oh, did you catch that? There is an actual like loading that occurs. There's an actual reload that occurs. And I'm going to navigate over to this network tab because this is something that is unique. You'll probably never go in here, but I do want to point your attention to it because this is a very, very important component of navigating the web. And navigating the web is all about speed. It is about timing. If somebody stays on your web page for longer than 2 to 3 seconds, they're leaving. They're going somewhere else. They are leaving your store and they're going to go buy their product somewhere else. They're going to get their information somewhere else. You have lost a potential customer. So here in home, if I click on this and I continue to keep clicking on it, it reloads the page every single time. For me, on my local host, that's not a big deal. It's pretty fast, so I don't really care. But imagine somebody is using it on a 3G or maybe even a 4G, and they've got to sit there through the reload while your images come back up. And we all know how painful it is to navigate the internet while it's slow. It's like, hit reload, reload faster, reload faster. So this is the implication of doing things incorrectly. We don't want that. We want to be able to load these pages really quick, really fast, really snappy. So we're going to change this up. And so far, our links don't even work. I don't know if you've noticed, but I click on services, no web page shows up. It's just the same exact page about the same exact page. The only thing that's changing is this URL because I'm not navigating it to go somewhere else. I've not included routing in here. So all this is doing is just reloading this entire page over and over again. So how do I fix this? This is going to get complicated and this is going to get really, really funky. But stick with me. I'm going to walk you through it a bunch of times in a bunch of different ways so that hopefully you get aware of what's happening. All right. So the first thing I'm going to do is stop the project because I do need an external module. This will be the first time we actually install something from the outside. And I'm going to install something called npm install React Router DOM. So React Router Document Object Model. I'm going to install this and it takes 2 seconds. It's very quick. It'll install and it'll be done and then we can be on our way. But the thing to notice, I'm going to go to package.json just to show that it's in here, React Router DOM. Now, there's a React DOM, there's a React Native, there's a bunch of different things, but React Router DOM is the official package. So we do need to include this package for routing. Now, when we install React Router DOM, in order to enable routing, we do have to go to our index.js. This is one of the few times we do have to go to our index.js and we have to enable routing. So in order to enable routing, we have to import a module. And the module we're going to import is called browser router. So import, and we're going to use these brackets because it is a very specific export. There's a whole bunch of other exports in that same file. So we're just going to import browser router. And you can already see that in the IDE, it comes up. If it doesn't, it's okay. But import browser router like this from React Router DOM. So we want to import it from the React Router DOM, the module we just installed. And you're going to see inside of here, this is going to get a little tricky, but it's very important to go between the React strict mode. You really don't even need React strict mode. It's okay if you have it, not a big deal. But we're going to add in browser router here. So if I click browser router and I close it, I do need to wrap. I do need to surround my app with browser router. This is going to be a concept we cover in a little bit in about 10-15 minutes, but I am going to show you exactly how to wrap components because so far all we've seen are single individual components like home. We've just seen home / end. That's it. But here for the first time, we're actually seeing, hey, there's a component and we don't close it off inside the component. We let it go and then we close it off later. This is called wrapping a component. And this is a common thing in React. It is highly annoying. It is highly confusing, but it is a definite thing in React. You'll find it also in Python, but not as weird. So now we've got this browser router surrounded by the app. And let's go back to a React app, see if anything is broken. And so far, it doesn't look like it. Everything's still functioning. Oh, wait a minute. It is broken. Ah, why? Because I haven't even started the app up yet. So that is one thing to keep in mind when you do make global changes. Go back and check your app. Make sure it's working, because you'll probably find out you broke something. And what I broke is I didn't even start the app. So let's start the app up and see if we have any errors. So as the app is starting back up, we're going to see, hey, are there any errors? And it looks like maybe, maybe not. Nope, no errors that I can tell. So we're going to go view developer tools and developer tools here. And let's make sure our links are still loading slowly. They are loading slowly. It is terrible. It takes 300 some odd milliseconds to load this page. You can see 337 milliseconds at the bottom. This is terrible. This is a terrible experience for the user. You would be mad on this. I'm mad because it's reloading. I want something smoother. I want something nicer. All right. So what are we going to do? We're going to come into app.js and we're going to use this library called link. And so inside of here, we have an ahref. I'm going to change the a tags and the href to a link coming in from React Router DOM and the word to. So here we have import link from React Router DOM. This is a special link tag that has a lot of cool, unique properties, but one of which is to not reload the entire page. So remember, when we were clicking on these links before, if I click on services, this will reload the entire time. It'll always reload, and it sucks. It keeps reloading. But now I'm going to click on home. I replace this with a link tag. I'm clicking it. There is nothing happening. Whoa, that's kind of smooth. That's kind of nice. So let's see on services and change that one and see what happens. So I'm going to change a to link to. And I can keep the link the exact same. I just have to change these tags so it uses this tag property up above. All right, so I've got link, and now I've got home, services. Whoa, I can keep clicking services, nothing happens. Remember, I keep clicking about, and this stuff keeps rolling, it keeps reloading. Oh, it's terrible. But I keep clicking services, it doesn't reload. That's kind of nice. I'm already on services. I keep clicking on services. I don't need to reload. Hey, that's pretty sweet. I click on home, and I don't need to reload. Hey, that's kind of sweet, kind of nice. All right, so let's change out the last one. And let's call this one link 2. And there we go. Now we've officially changed up all of our links to be these nice links without any reloading happening. That's pretty dope. Okay, we still haven't figured out routing yet. We still haven't changed this page, but at least on the URL side, things are okay. Now let's include routing. And this is where things are going to get a little hairy and a little weird, but all right, let's do this. There is a routes package. So in order to do routes, we need a few things. So first, a package that enables routes, or that calls out routes. Then a package, or I should rather call them a module. Yeah, let's call it a module. Then a module that contains the routes. I am going to show you the documentation, and it is really, really funky, but let's go to React Router DOM documentation. And inside React Router DOM, React Router docs right here, if we go to the tutorial, we're going to see a whole bunch of stuff in here. So in here, we did the npm install React Router DOM. Always need this. Boom. We don't really need this one. This is only for the tutorial, so you're okay. So we run the application, and this is where things are going to get a little weird. So in here, they do a create browser router thing, and you don't really need that. You just need the regular browser router. So I'm not going to go over that, but what I am going to show is kind of this below with the routes and the, where is it? Maybe it isn't in here. Maybe I forgot where it is. Maybe I'm not finding it. Yeah, you'll see the documentation is maybe a little weird. So maybe in the samples. No, it is in the tutorial. So if I go into, I don't want that. I want client-side routing. And there's our link to, and where am I looking at? Yeah, I think they do things a little bit differently than what I learned, so it is okay. We're gonna go over something really, really simple, hopefully, and it'll be easier to navigate rather than this one. But there is a way to do this that I want to show you the documentation because it is not exactly great. It is not simple to follow. It is not easy. But in here, they show you the method to do it inside of the browser, create browser router, and then put all the paths inside here with the elements. I'm going to show you a much simpler way to do it that makes a little bit more sense and is a little bit more concise. But here, instead of doing this, we are going to have the element, we are going to have the path. They're adding in a lot more data that we don't really need with nested elements and other items. So we don't really need that level. We just need a simple, yeah, I'm going to get out of this documentation. I'm going to show you how to do this without any of that stuff. So in here, we're going to add in the routes library. And we're going to use a open closing tag. And inside of routes, we're going to add in our route. And so we do need both of these libraries. And so inside of here, this is going to a little confusing, but you have link, route, and routes. This library has been updated. People like me who learned the old way, remember the old way, maybe we get a little stuck. So maybe I have to adapt and change. But this one is a single tag close. So this is going to get a bit confusing. You have a wrapping tag of routes, and you have a route here that we are going to close off right away. And inside route, we are going to put a path. And this path is going to match the path that we have up here. So link to is going to match path. And inside of path, we're going to have an element. And inside of the element, we're going to have squiggly brackets. And inside of here, we're going to have our home element. All right. So actually, let's do this. Instead of our home element, I want to show the about element first. So about, we created that page already, so we're going to import that, and we'll change this to about, and we'll have our route for services. And I'm going to show you something funky that does happen. So services and services. Okay, so far, no errors. It all looks good. We have our home. Oops. We have our home, and then we have our routes, and then we have our links up here. So we've got the link to, we fixed that. And then we've got our routes down here. We've only got about and services. It's okay. Let's go back to the React app. And now let's click on home. Cool, that looks good. Let's click on services. Wait, I'm not seeing anything. I'm not seeing anything. I'm not seeing anything. Well, we have it. It's just not where you'd expect it. It's down here, all the way at the bottom. Welcome to the services page. And I want to change this up just so you can see it a bit more clearly. But this is a top-down loading. And so what's happening is we've got the nav bar, then we're loading home, then we're placing our routes. So if I moved home below and reloaded this and now went back to our page, we can see we've got home, we've got services, and we've got about. So welcome to the about page. Hey, the routing is working. It's just not working the way we want it to. It's working. We've got all this stuff in the middle. So we've got services and about. And let's look at the network. Nothing's happening on the network. It is so quiet on the network. It is like, wait, why is nothing happening on the network? Because this is a self-contained app that doesn't have to reload. It is now a much smoother operation for the client. There's no reloading happening. First time only. So if I refresh this, the network is going to reload. But now when I go to services, there's not a single thing happening here. It is so nice, so quiet, and I'm getting my data. It's beautiful. It is very quick, very simple. No loading of the document object model. That's the power of React. So these are dynamic pages now. So let's fix the home problem. Why is home loading all the time? Services and home. Well, home is global. It's here. So what if I moved home into a route path? Well, let's take a look. So if I did the same thing as I do here, I want to change the route path here to be a forward slash. I'm going to change this one to home. I'm going to remove home from here. And now let's see what happens. So we go back to our React app. I'm in the about page. Cool. I'm in the services page. And now I'm in the home page. Hey, this is looking much more like an app that I would see in the real world. So I go to services, I go to about, and then I go to home. Hey, pretty sweet. It loads really, really quick. All good. So the reason this is taking time to load is because it is pulling the images, and we can see that here on the side. It's pulling the images. If I had these images local, it wouldn't even need to pull these images. But because these images are on the web and it's going out to images.pixels every time, that is why we have a loading delay here. So we have services about, which have no loading delay, and then we have home, and then boom, done. And it's pretty quick. So that is a huge improvement from where we were at. But we still can improve on this. We can still improve because right now we've got like this junk here. We can clean this up quite a bit. Now we've got this sort of like nav bar and this footer. And we want that to be on every single page. We can leave it here, but we can also clean this up to where it's much nicer. And so I'm going to create a folder, and you'll see this very often, a layout folder. I'm going to create a folder called layout. And inside of layout, I'm going to create another folder. I'm going to call this navbar. I'm going to create another folder called footer. So I'm going to take our two components, the navbar and the footer. I'm going to create the navbar, and inside navbar, navbar.js. And inside of footer, I'm going to create a footer.js. Cool. Inside of my navbar, export const navbar. And we're going to do a return, and we're going to stick in our navbar in there. So we're going to take our navbar and we're just going to stick it in there. So Control X, take it into the navbar.js, and boom, paste it in. We're going to get an error here because right when we paste it in, React app is going to be like, yo, bro, what the heck? We haven't. Let's save our app.js. Save this. So our navbar will disappear. Navbar is gone from here. And if I want to reintroduce the navbar, just watch out. I run into this error all the time, but I just want to show you the error, and you're going to get this error that's going to look really funky. Link is not defined. You're like, oh man, I knew it. So inside navbar, what do we have to do? I have to add link because link is used in here. It's a component that's used in here that we didn't import. So the imports do have to come in, and link from React Router DOM, and that will clear out that error. So we refresh here, and all this stuff shows back up about services and home. So we're working, we're functional, and there's our footer down below. And let's grab that footer and toss it into the footer.js. So grab this one, and our footer will disappear from our page. Export const footer equals to return, and we'll save. Let's fix this up. This is a bit annoying, but yeah, there we go. So now when we come back to app.js, we don't have a footer, but we can stick in our footer here. I'm going to clean this up, but I do want to show that everything is functioning and working. It's like, wait a minute, why'd you create a layout if you're just going to put in a nav bar and the footer there? Well, I just want to show that it's working, and we see that it is. Okay, cool. And our responsiveness is working. So everything, we're back to normal. We got a header up here, and we got a footer down here. Cool. But why did I create a layout folder for these two? That makes no sense. All right, so inside here, I'm going to create a layout file. Layout.js. Cool. And inside layout.js, I'm going to do an export const layout equals to this return, and boom. And inside of here, I'm going to have a div. And inside of here, I'm going to have a navbar. And I'm going to have a footer. Cool. Now I'm going to go back to app.js. I'm going to get rid of footer. I'm going to get rid of navbar. And we're going to come back here, And we're going to refresh this page, and we don't have a footer, and we don't have a nav bar. Let me add the layout component we just created. So there's the layout, open closing tag, and a end tag. So remember when I said we're going to use this open closing tag and stick elements in between? Very similar to what we did here with the index.js. We have a browser router open tag and a closing tag for the browser router, and we're wrapping an element. We're doing that same exact thing here. We are wrapping the routes inside of the layout element. So here's the closing tag, here's the open tag, and in between is our routes element. So, okay, let's see what happens in our page now that I've wrapped. So inside of here, oh, I just got my header and my footer. I've got home, services, and about, but I lost all the stuff in the middle. Everything in the middle is gone. Wait, what happened? Yeah, that's a problem. So let's see what happens. Inside of a layout, I can pass in what are called props. And inside of the props, there are children inside of these props. And this is some weird terminology and language, but the reason I bring up children and props is because inside of layout.js, what we're doing is we're telling layout.js, hey, layout, we want to pass these elements into you and we want to have you display them. But in our layout.js, we haven't told layout.js how to process that information. And so I'm going to add in this word props. You will see this so often. It is very common. And inside of here, just to prove that it works, I want to show you props.children. And now we go back to our React app and everything is back. So services, about, we have our header and footer, we have services, we have home, and it all works as it should work. Now, why do I bring up props and why do I bring up children? Because children is not documented, and you will see this very weird error when you come back here. Objects are not valid as React child, found object with keys children. If you meant to render a collection of children, use an array instead. So it's like, wait a minute, what's going on here? What does this even mean? Why are there children in React? Children should be in school or at home and not in React. You're absolutely right. The terminology is very weird. So what do we have to do? We do need that keyword dot children here. Okay, now I'm going to nerd out a little bit and show you some very advanced things and show you what's going on in here. So just to make sure the app works, I'm going to console.log props here. And just so we can see what's inside of props itself. And so if I go to console, why is all that? Oh, I'm going to delete all this stuff. And we'll start off again and just reload this. And then we've got this. Oh, let me fix that body problem too, real quick. Sorry. It is complaining about these body tags. And there we go. Change these up to a div. Sorry. So let's reload. And that gets rid of those. Okay, cool. So we've got this children output here in props. So we know we can use the children element. Now, what is in children? So everything in a prop is a child. I don't know why. They just decided to make it that way. Parent-child relationship, I get it, but it's still really weird. But anyway, inside of children, there is a props. And inside of props, we've got 3 children. And inside of these 3 children, we can take a look at what they are. And we will see this all looks very crazy. I don't know what this is. So I'm going to keep expanding because I'll see route props and I'll see path element. Wait a minute. This might look a little bit familiar. Path /. Okay, got it. And what's the element? Don't really know quite yet. But at least I have this / that I can see that is familiar. Maybe I'll see another pattern that looks a little bit more familiar. So if I go to the second one, and I know this is hard to see. This is like, it will make you go blind the first time you see it. It's like, what am I looking at? I have this about element. And in number 2, I have this services element. Oh, okay. So I can see that these are things that I have typed in, things that I have done. So I can then drill in and see where these go and where the source is. And I can see, oh, this looks very, very familiar. Let me see where this actually goes to. And why can I not scroll off to the side here? I wish I could see that, but I cannot. Maybe it just goes into app.js. Okay. So I can see, at least from a coding perspective, this is following at least what I am typing in. So I know that these are elements. Now I don't have to understand everything in here. These are React elements. This is a prop about. This is a route type prop. And so I can see already that there's some similarity to what I'm doing. Hard to see, hard to tell. If you ever want to troubleshoot it or you want to dive in and look at it and play around with it, I highly suggest it so you can see what's happening in here. But do you really have to understand all of this? Not in the beginning stages, not even in the intermediate, maybe in the advanced, but for the most part, you'll find yourself in here to troubleshoot a little bit to see why the values might not be showing up, or if they show up, where they're showing up to grab the keys. But for the most part, you'll stay in here very, very infrequently, unless you're doing like JSON object notation and trying to find where a key lives or how to reference it. So, all right, so we've got this children prototype in here and we can grab it, but without it, it is a very big deal because you can't render the dictionary by itself. So this is a dictionary. React cannot render just an open dictionary by itself. So that is why we need to drop down and use the word children, and then it automatically drops down into here and pulls out each one of these, parses them individually, and then is able to navigate through each one of these 3 items in the prop. I know that was a lot. I know that's probably really confusing, but just as we've seen, that's how React works, unfortunately. So here's the layout, here's layout. We do need to wrap our routes, and inside routes, if we want to reference these things, this would be a child to reference. So if we wanted to get rid of routes, I'll keep it for now. I don't want to complicate things too much. But so far, what we have done is we started off with a basic. This is the original. We went to home. We didn't have services. We didn't have about. But what we did do is create a services, and we created an about. I will be honest, these pages look terrible, but they are for you to build out your portfolio and your resume so that now you can focus on just the HTML and the CSS. So it makes it easy to have this pre-stacked template or pre-created template where you can jump in and start navigating or start creating based on what you feel you want to have. This home section was created for you, so you have a look and feel already. Now you can jump in the services, jump in the about. So if you want some ideas for this, there's easy ways to find a resume and try to fit the template of the resume any way you want to. Same thing with services. Which layout do you want to use? Hopefully these layouts here are making sense. And so you can look at the code for these and see how you want to lay your project out. But I know that was a bit quick on the overview. I'm going to do that whole thing again. And the reason why I'm going to do it again is because I want to get used to this feeling of deleting. So we've covered a lot in here. I'm going to delete all this and we're going to restart from scratch, restart from fresh. And so in here, what we're going to do is we want to get used to that feeling of, oh no, my project is going to go away. I'm going to lose everything. I'm not going to be able to recreate it. The more times we recreate it, the more familiar we get. So let's do this. I'm going to go do a rm minus rf dot slash. That dot slash is very important. First app. I'm going to blow the entire project away. So I'm going to close all these files first because this is going to get annoying if I don't close the files first. You don't want to see me like clicking on every single file, closing it. But here we have our first app. And I'm a bit worried. Oh no, I'm going to blow this whole project away. It's gone. Like first app is now done. It doesn't exist anymore. If I try to reload this page to localhost, it can't be reached, gone. And now we're back to our blank folder. And to make it even more stark, let's start where we started from the beginning. And so now I'm going to build it out as I would build it out if I am building my own project. So I come here and I see, hey, well, I need 3 pages. I got home, services, and about. Okay, I know this stuff belongs in the home section. I'm going to need routes. I'm going to need layout. So, okay, that's how I start thinking about things now. So before I even come here, in my mind, there is 3 sections and a layout section. So there's actually 4 sections I need to think about. The nav bar is something I want to keep. The footer is something I want to keep. Maybe I want to keep the contact page as well, but I'll leave that up to you. Then there's going to be the services page and the about page. So let's start building this out real quick. So first task, create React app. Whoops, wrong way. Create React app, first app. So now we're going to create the React app and we're going to pop it in the first app directory and we're going to watch it do its thing. So in kind of like just a high level, what are we going to be doing? We're going to be bringing in React Router DOM after we do this. And I'm going to need my layout components. I'm going to need home directory components, services directory, about directory. And I should be okay with all of that. So once that gets created, then I can start knocking those elements out. But in the meantime, hopefully that wasn't too fast. I do kind of want to go over this one, just a brief amount. The way things used to be done back in the day versus the way things are done now, uh, things change very, very quickly. And you can see as I was going through this tutorial, it was probably something I should have prepared for a little bit more. But as I was going through this tutorial, I was like, wait a minute, this looks very different than what I'm used to, what I learned and how I learned it. We can clearly see the way I've done it clearly works, but the way that they're recommending doing it, like in this way right here, this looks very different than what I'm used to. So I didn't want to jump into something that is brand new, very confusing, and then having to do it this way as opposed to um, the way that I did it before. But I do think that in this context, in this method, they're probably not wrong in this one where they're adding it to the global path as opposed to the local path in app.js. So they're adding this into index.js and then they're popping that into the browser router provider here. And then inside of here, they are adding a router element. So they're putting all of their routes inside of a browser router. And then inside of that, they're using a router provider to be able to use this style. So things change rather quickly. But that being said, let's jump back into a project and let me start the project. And then first app, npm start. And we're going to see that our project is loading and we have the basic React sort of logo that pops up and we're good to go. All right, so let's start with at least getting our code in here. So I'm just going to copy this one and copy the element. And we are going to delete all of this inside of here, inside of app.js. We're going to delete all of that. And then we're going to paste in what we did. So the beginning steps, pretty simple, very, very easy, very, very similar to what we did. I'm going to fix up the class name. I'm going to fix up the image and fix up the inputs. So once we do that, so fix these all up, get rid of those HTML standard issue errors. And let's go to the bottom where we have our inputs. And inside of our inputs, we're going to put those forward slashes at the end, those closing tags, the ever so important ones. Let's clear this HTML4. And we're going to go name. And we're going to go name equals to name. That way these two match. And here we'll go HTML4. And we'll call this email. And we'll call this one email. And we'll call this one HTML4 message. That gets rid of all of our little nitpicky errors. This won't affect the project, but just they're annoying. And then we're going to change up class to class name. So let's select all of them, Command D if you're on a Mac or Linux. On Windows, I think it'd be Windows D. So now we fixed up all those little errors. We can get rid of this logo at the top because we no longer need it. And we should be okay. And then we're going to replace the CSS. So let's grab the sources and jump into Style Sheet and CSS. Copy this, go to App CSS, and paste that in, and we should be good to go. So now if we come back to a project, hey, our project is up and running, good to go. We're in the exact same place as this project here. And now we're going to add our enhancements. So inside a source, I'm going to create a bunch of folders, home, and source. I keep forgetting the components folder. I apologize. I just don't like that one. I want to jump ahead. So components, and home goes into components. And inside of components, I'm going to create a about. And inside of components, I'm going to create a services. Now I'm going to keep it simple for the about and the services. I'm just going to create a single file. So this will be about.js. And this will be a services.js. And in here, we'll create a home.js. And so inside of home, about, and services, we're going to use the same exact template. About equals to return. And inside here, we'll put in just a very quick, very simple welcome to the about page. and save that, copy that, go into services, and welcome to the services page. So very simple. Inside of home, we're going to use the same thing, except inside of home, we're going to leave this one blank for now because we're going to continue to fill that out with the hero section, section 1. We actually have sections in here, so we can fill that out. So inside of home, we are going to add in folders here. And inside of home, we're going to add in hero. And inside of that, we are going to add in hero.js. So if I was doing this on the command line or the keyboard, I would do something a little bit faster and I would start using the keyboard and I would say mkdir, mkdir, and I would go into source, components, home, and I would create a section 1, section 2, section 3, contact form, and then I would do a touch to make the files. Source components, home, section 1, section 1.js, and then section 2, be section 2.js, and then section 3, section 3.js, and then contact form or contact form, contact form.js. So that creates all of my files inside of home. And then inside of home, it's really easy. I can just start importing these items once I fill them out. But before I do that, let me create the template for all of these. So I would do export const contact form equals to return. And that's all I would do for that one. Contact form, hero. All of these are going to be red until I fix them. And section 1, whoops, wrong one. There we go. Section 3. And section 2. So now we have our templates. And I'm going to go into app.js because that's where our files are. And we've got that navbar, which we'll deal with later, but we've got our hero. So we're going to jump in, grab that hero, come in here, and pop it in the hero.js. Save that. So the hero goes green, good to go. Section 1, grab this, come into section 1.js, paste that in. Section 1 goes green. Section 2. Section 2.js goes green. Section 3. Grab this, section 3, and contact form. Cool. And inside of contact form, there we go. So now I've got all those. I'm going to go to home.js, and inside here, we've got our hero. Why is the hero not wanting to show up? That's weird. Hero.js is right there, home.js. Hero. Weird. Oh, that's why, because I've called that one hero. So this should be home. So typos galore, there will be those. Hero, section 1, section 2, section 3, and a contact form. So all of these are good. I'm going to go back to my app.js. I'm going to just toss in the word home here, make sure we're okay. I'm going to need to import that anyway. And so let's go back to our project. Let's reload. Hey, we can't be reached because we haven't started up the app. So let's come back in here and npm start and see if we have any errors, see if we have any problems. So far, it looks like we're okay. And we're back to our original project with our terrible links up here that don't work and our home links, but everything is working. It's all looking pretty good. And so let's just verify, hey, are we doing the right thing? So go to developer tools, go to sources, and this looks a little bit better. We got a static JS, we have our static source files, and we've got our components. In the future, I'll show you how to hide this, but for now, we've got our components. So we know we're doing the right thing based on what we want. So we're rendering all these out correctly. Awesome. So now what do we want to do? We've got our home. Now we're going to work on the navbar and the links and all of that good stuff. So let's take our layout. Actually, let's do the routes. That'll probably be easier. So let's import our React router DOM. So npm install React router DOM. And then we're going to start our app up again and then pop in the routes. So this is typically how I would maybe approach a project. And I would kind of think through, okay, here's the main component that I wanted to like clean up. So I've cleaned up home. Awesome. Now I got to clean up these things. And all this really is a syntactical sugar, as somebody that I know likes to call it, where Trevor C. Media, thank you for that. But I think the idea is just to clean this up. We can do all of this without moving into these components, but it's just nicer to move into the components. It's just easier to read, easier to work with, much more intuitive. So here we're just going to add in the link component, and in here, link to, and we can do these and link to. And then we're going to come over to the A tag that we have here and change these up to links and save that. Now, when we come back here, we will have, oh no, this would be a problem. What happened? Well, we have some type of issue going on. So let's see what happened. And I just change those up to links. And oh, that would be a problem. So change those up. And there we go. Refresh. And something's going on with the project, which I'm not sure about. Let's restart it. So you might run into some funky errors where things just don't work as they should. So let's take a look at the developer tools. Good opportunity. And we'll see. The above error occurred in the link component. Maybe I got a typo here. Link to, is there a typo anywhere? Let's go to this and see if it fixes anything. So it does. So we jump back in. Okay, cool. Now let's change at least just link href to link to. And let's go to link. And it is very possible that I imported the wrong link from the wrong thing, which I don't even have link imported. I thought I did. But let's import link. That would be a problem from React router DOM. Whoops. So that is a weird error. Why am I getting that? Link to, yeah, that is very weird. Okay, so import link. And let's change this up too. All right, so for some reason, it is not a fan of link, and I cannot see why. Maybe I'm just moving too fast for my own good, and I just can't see why the link component doesn't want to work. Link from React router DOM, which that looks right. And if I change this up to link to, and change this up to link, everything breaks. Interesting. Maybe I will have to come back to this one. But why is the link reference not working? Am I typing that in wrong? I don't think so. It just does not like that one. Let's go back to the A tag. Oh, I missed a very important component. So I'm going to toss this back in. I know what I'm missing. Oh, and hopefully some of you are screaming at me over the video saying, hey, you forgot this really, really important thing. You didn't do it right. And you're absolutely right. I forgot the global browser router. And inside of here, let's add the import browser router, the thing that we do only one time, and let's wrap this one. Oh, man, that feels so good to actually fix that error and remember what's going on. And there we go. Oh, so important. So I'm going to delete this and just show something where I screwed up and I was like, I do not understand what this means. I honestly don't even understand what this error means. I get it. It can't destructure the property base name of something in here, but there's nothing in here to indicate to me where the problem is. It just tells me, hey, there's a problem in the link component. I have been coding for about 5 to 7 years now, and I still run into this every once in a while. Like, oh man, I forgot about that. Okay, so pop this in, very natural. And now the link components are working. So let's continue. Link 2. And here we go. Link and link. All right, so now let's test out our app. Hey, services and about, let's change up these and make them more appropriate. And there we go. And now we've got services and about. So our links are working properly, home, services, and about. Awesome. Now we're going to add in our routes. So this is where things are going to get really, really funky. We've got home. So I'm going to wrap up home, but inside of here, I'm going to add in routes. And inside of here, I'm going to add in route. So I want to make sure that both of those got imported correctly. So link, route, and routes. All three of those are in there. And inside route, we are going to go to path equals /. So just remember that path and 2 should match. So I can have paths that aren't in here, and I can have links that are mistyped, and that's okay. I won't get any error, but things just won't work. So that is one thing to watch out for. So inside of here, open curly bracket, and inside of here, I'm going to have home. And maybe I'll show what that arrow will look like, but for now, I'll show it towards the end. We're going to have the about or services, and we will have about. And we will have the about and about. This should be services, sorry. Services, there we go. So now we have our services, about, and home, and I'm going to save this, and everything is going to break. Hey, it didn't break. We've got our services, we've got our about page, these two are working, and let's go to our network, and it's all looking pretty beautiful. And now let's go to home. Hey, our home is there and it's working, and we've just got our footer down below and our header above. So we've just got to take care of those two components, and we're pretty much home free. So before we do the layout components, I want to show about page. I'm just going to add in that link up there. And so when we click on the about page, we don't get any information here. Nothing comes up at all. So when we go to services, everything shows up just fine. But this is what's going to happen if I have a link that doesn't match the path. So there's no about page link in here unless I make this one about page. Then those two match and I'll get the about page here. So make sure if something's not working, there's not going to be an error. So just make sure that these match if you're not getting what you want. This is more than likely where the issue might lie, or it could be, I mean, chances are it could be somewhere else, but more than likely it's probably going to be in that. So these two, the 2 and the path, must match in order for the content to show up. If they don't match, you will not unfortunately get an error. You won't get anything. You'll just get not what you're expecting. All right, so now let's clean up the navbar and the footer. So here I'm going to create another folder inside of components. And inside of components, I'm going to create, let's go about home and services. So it becomes a little bit cleaner. I'm going to create a layout.js or layout folder. And inside of layout, why did it create it under services? There we go. Move it to layout. And inside of layout, I'm going to create a layout.js. Now, do I have to create a navbar folder? Do I have to create a footer folder? No, but it's probably a good idea because you're going to add in styling. You're going to add in some other things in the future. So it's probably good to have their own folder. So I'm going to move navbar. There we go. We want to have the navbar JS inside of the navbar folder. And then layout, we're going to add in a footer. And inside of footer, we're going to add in footer.js. So inside of Y navbar, I need to add in a navbar .js file. There we go. So export const navbar equals to return. And there we go. Keep that there. And the footer, fix that one. Export const footer and return. And let's grab from app.js, let's grab our navbar. And the first thing that is rushing into my mind is, oh, remember to add the link. Remember to add the link. So import link from React Router DOM. So hopefully that nullifies or gets ahead of any errors that we might run into. We're going to grab this here and want to take it into the footer, pop that in. And so inside of our layout.js, I am going to do an export const layout equals to. And you're probably already screaming at me saying, don't forget the props, don't forget the props. Don't worry, I'm going to add it in, but first I'm going to add in the broken side just to show what that looks like again as to why props are so important. And I'm going to leave a space right here because there's got to be something that comes in the middle there. So I'm going to leave it as is for now, and I'm going to come back to app.js. So inside of our app.js, it's looking pretty slim. All we have are these routes, and that's it, right? So we can even make this simpler if we wanted to, but for now, I'm going to leave it the way it is. And we can get rid of this link component because we're not using it. Save that, and looks pretty good. All I'm going to do is wrap this with a layout component. And wrap. When to wrap, when to close. That is something you will get the feel for when you start coding, when you start actually looking at the elements. So here we have two wrappers and then a single close element. How do you know what needs to be wrapped? How do you know what's a single close element? That'll come with time. That'll come with reading documentation. That'll come with experience. So to know which is which right off the bat, that's going to take some time to learn. But for now, I'm going to walk you through, hey, these are wrap components. These are individual element components. You can also do something along the lines of this as well and just close that tag if you're not comfortable. That works as well. So maybe a good rule of thumb is close every tag in the beginning, but you don't really need to. And the reason why we don't do this is because we want the page to load faster. This is extra keystrokes. This is extra memory. This is extra space. We don't want that. And so if I delete this and replace it with that, well, that saves me time. So when you've got millions of lines of code, this is much more efficient and saves me so much space over the course of time that my page loads faster, because that is the end goal. How do we make this more concise? How do we make it load faster? How do we make it load better? So, all right, now we come back to our project and we take a look and hey, nothing is working. Home, services, and about. My whole project doesn't work. It's all broken. Son of a, I don't know what's going on here. That's the cost of using props or not knowing that you do have to pass in props and then call in the props children here. And as I'm talking, I'm like, oh, I hope to God this works, because if it doesn't work, then I'm missing something else and I don't know what it is. But thankfully it works. So now we have our about, we have our home, we have our services. So I know that was quite a bit, and I know we went over it twice, and I know there's multiple ways to do it, but I wanted to go over the belabored first way to show you, like, oh, this is very involved. This is not easy. This is going to take you some time, and to show how these components break down from, hey, this very big component here with all of these elements, how we chunk them down into smaller elements. And the reason for that is for coding efficiency, for intuition, so that when we work on larger teams, when we load this into pages, we can load them into smaller chunks. We don't have to reload the whole page. So now if I make a change to the layout element, it just re-renders this small layout element. If I make a change to the nav bar, it just changes the nav bar. That's it. It doesn't have to reload the whole page. So that's the beauty of making these changes in these projects like this, that I can have small little changes that don't affect my entire project. So I know it's probably hard to see on this screen, but what I am going to try to do is just change up the, let's say I go into the hero section and I just change up the word to section. So I go to home and I go to hero, and I want that to be not hero section, but I want this to be main section. So if I make this change here, and it's terrible, it's all lowercase, it's not great, but if I make this change here, nothing else will change, only this. So that's the beauty of changing the main section here. Nothing else gets updated. I don't have to reload anything. It was super fast. It takes no time to change individual sections. If I wanted to, I could break this down even further. I don't need to, but I could break this down into even smaller components. And some massive applications, like a Facebook application, might break down individual p tags into their own components because they need that level of granular change ability without affecting the entire component or the entire page. So this really is dependent on you as to how far you want to break this down. For me, I thought section by section is probably pretty good, but if you want to break it down element by element, you can do that as well. So very much dependent on how big your project is, how much change you really anticipate happening, and how much granular control you need over each individual component, because this is a component, this is a component, this is a component. These are all individual components that you can change dynamically over time. So if you have a site that relies heavily on a database, you might want to break out each individual component into, or each individual item into its own component. That way, when the database renders and gives updated information, you're not needing to refresh sort of that whole section or change that section. You can just update that small component and then provide a better user experience. That'll come with time. As you start to gather metrics and as you start to see user interactions, as you start to see how people are interacting with your page, you'll see time spent, dwell time, and you'll want to be able to reduce those to make your site a bit more efficient. All right, I know that was a lot, and my apologies if I glossed over anything. Feel free to ask any questions, but I did want to provide you with a way to make a single page app into a multi-page app, and therefore now you have at least a portfolio to show off when you start filling it out yourself, that, hey, I can fill this in with my about, maybe about me, a picture of me, a resume. If I want to go into services, I can fill out all the things that I've done, how much I would charge for each of the services, and I can start doing my own business here if I wanted to. This is my retail front. I want people to come here. I want people to invest in me. I want people to talk to me. They can contact me down below. And so we made a full functioning contact form using FormSpree as well. So thus far, we have this only on our local computer. Nobody in the world can see this. Next week, we're going to do a full recap, full review, put all of this stuff in, and then launch it on GitHub so that the world can see this site, so that my parents can access it, my friends can access it, people I don't even know can access it, and they can start inquiring about what services I can help them with or what my capabilities are. I can use this as an online resume if I'm applying for a new job. So I want you to walk away with a full portfolio that is accessible and showcaseable, or you can have a showcase to show others. All right. So with that, if there aren't any questions, I appreciate your time today. Feel free to ask. But I will see you all next week and we will wrap this up. I hope you're coming back for the conclusion, and I will talk to you next week. Bye, everybody.